Good morning, everybody. It's Marty, the JavaScript party. My buddy Rhett. I do have a nut for her. It kind of fell apart. Let's see, one, two, three. I don't know what kind of nut this is, but it's got a very hard shell and it's very round, so it'll break. And then here we go, Rhett. And then what'll happen is it'll crack the nut inside. Sometimes it's really hard. The hardness of the shell is very close. The shell is very close to the actual nut inside. So when you pop it, it often breaks the nut too. So yesterday we were trying to get okay. So we um, basically this was like a huge win. This page, because what happened was I built this page, and my guess was in the future this speech Angular voice analyzer that the API was probably going to go under massive changes. So I knew I wanted to kind of build a little tool out that would show me all of the API things in it, all the methods and properties on it, and I worked for like a year, and then suddenly this property just showed up out of nowhere. I learned a lot about the web. Because I think it was a 2016 election. I was working for CNN, and we had a challenge in that um, the they were disabling the ability to auto start a video unless the dimensions of the div were large, of the div that it was going to be presenting in the video was going to be presented in, was bigger than a certain amount. So for some reason, and they literally rolled that out like 2 days before the election. And so they had taken months and months and months, because the election for CNN at that time, I don't know what things are like now, but at that time was basically like the Super Bowl. A typical day they would have, like, I think that back then 10 to 15 million unique visitors, but on election day it was more like um, 50 to 60 million. And like the people that were on for longer and all that. So basically they had this design that they had been working on for a whole year, that had sort of a little area where it would be live video from CNN.com, from CNN uh, um, cable, and then in that, but you could expand that little div and watch it. But then about a month before, Google announced like what they were going to be rolling out, and it was just going to be 2 days before the election, and that they weren't going to allow autoplay in that little area. So we had to write some JavaScript. It was a jQuery code. I had to write some jQuery code that would run, and it would look at your version of Chrome, and if it was the newer version, um, it would resize that element. It would resize the element so that it was big enough to auto start, and the design would change a little bit. And then if it didn't, and if it was an older version, it would stay with the design, the original design. Um, so that's where I got in my head that, like, design or new things come on, and there's like versions of the browser, and when you look at the version of the browser, you can know what is available and what's not available. There's also some websites and stuff that will tell you what features are available, and they always break it down by version, and then they tell you what version of it is. But so that was sort of one fact I was operating, one false fact that I was operating on. Apparently, it was true until 2017. So I was operating under that false fact. Then the other false fact I was operating on, well, no, it's an actual fact, but was that the Edge browser was built out of Chromium, just like the Chrome browser, but that the Edge browser was like a couple months behind, so you wouldn't see features from you would see features get into the Edge browser like a month to 2 months before you saw features go into the Edge browser. But so I fully expected, if I went to my website with Edge, I would see to this application that I would see all greens, and process locally wouldn't be there, and process locally was there. So that told me that I was operating under some sort of bad assumption. There's certain concepts around the browser that I was completely wrong about. So that's always hard, right? It's always hard when you find out that some reality that you were operating on is no longer true. But it is sort of just the fact of life. It's just a fact of life for software developers, especially on like sort of the browser and stuff like that. But I think in general, you can't get too attached to your beliefs because things are always changing. So basically, I went through with ChatGPT and found out that no APIs. Most browsers Chromium has tons and tons of stuff that's based on that's got flags that you can turn on and off, and then those features are on and off, and that they do in fact have the ability to turn them off at the individual user level and on, so they can make. So this is probably, like, if I had to guess right now, I would imagine this is a feature that exists but is disabled for most people, but is enabled for um, like government and secret and sensitive, powerful organizations. So powerful organizations can in fact turn off process locally, I would guess, but regular people can't. And I don't know why. And then, but I guess um, this Yeah, so they don't want you to. Yeah, so I don't know. Once I get to there, that's all I know. That's all I can really guess. Any guesses beyond that are just so on guesses and guesses. But I'm guessing like organizations like Defense Logistics Agency, the CIA, NSA, all those sorts of organizations do in fact have the ability to turn process locally on, um, so that they don't have to worry about like secrets and stuff getting out. So that's my guess right now. So, anyways, that was pretty mind blowing. Secondly, the other mind blowing thing was that in everything I've ever worked with, um, you could do, you could add like outputs, and they just worked. I mean, it was just no big deal. But for some strange reason, that was not working for me yesterday at all. So let me go look and see, because I did finally get it working with the speech service. So basically, this true and false up here, and I guess I should take one more step back. So while it was a huge win to that this tool actually worked, it was kind of like a problem sort of presented, and this is quite often the case. Like whenever you have an idea of something you want to do, and then when it actually happens, you're like, oh, that's really great, but. And the thing that was the but was that quite honestly, we normally will go to straight into here or here, um, and never even look in this one. So unless there was something in the tab, you would have no way of knowing that there was actually a change, because it's way here below the fold. It's all the way down here. So I needed a way to communicate that up, and I figured out that all the processing, which I don't know, I remember going back and forth um, at the time, now that I think about it, on whether I wanted the processing to determine whether something was true or false to be in a service, or whether I wanted to be at the component level. And I decided the component level, but then when I found out, oh, we need to know it outside of the component, it was like, oh, that was a mistake. So, um, so I tried to make an output and try to listen for the output in the parent, and I don't know why that didn't work. It blows my mind that it didn't work. I don't know why. I'm tired, but I got tired of it and moved on. And so basically, in the speech service, I added another um, attribute called found API change, and then I just say true or false in this template. Now, I go straight to the speech service, and I don't know why this is the case, and I don't even know if it is actually the case, but I had found that for some strange reason, when you like, I think from the coder experience perspective, it's really nice to have like a variable up here. Let me go to this view. Like a variable, a component variable, and then and then change this variable and tie that to the browser, right? Change, tie this to the browser. But for some reason, you get this value change before expression error a lot. But that error does not seem to happen if you go straight to the service. Or maybe it doesn't, maybe in the example that I found sort of ran into this, it just didn't happen because the service, it was, um, it was subscribing to the signal. It was listening to the signal directly instead of setting a value, a local value, and it was just going directly. And it was just kind of like, and the expression console log went away. So now I've gotten to where, like, I don't know, it's more of a superstition than an understanding, but like my superstition is like, hey, if I just go straight to the service or something, I won't have that problem. And it did make me think that it would be might be a good idea to actually have a service in every component that is signals, and that anything that's drawn on the screen is based on those signals, and the screen is listening for changes in the signals, and that would probably make it where you never had to deal with that again. And it would be kind of nice to say, to have a place that you look at and it just shows you every piece of data that is being used on the template, and you can just look at it in code format. I don't know. It's a thought that's sort of bouncing around in my head. But anyways, I don't think we need, let's see, I don't think we need that anymore, this variable that I was trying to use. I don't think this one has any value, and I don't think anything is using it, but we'll find out. So it looks like something at the bottom is using it. Okay, yeah, so we were trying to call this function to send it. And if you've never seen this debugger, it's a thing that's been around since like the 90s. Is that right? Maybe the early 2000s. I don't know. But what's pretty cool about it is basically like kind of like a breakpoint. It'll launch the debugger as long as the console is up, or as long as your tools are up. It'll launch the debugger the minute it hits this line, and that can be really helpful, because once it launches the debugger, you can kind of see what called it. So if you have a function that's running and you don't know why that function's running, that debugger can be really a useful little thing. But we don't need that anymore. We don't need any of that stuff. And then let's just double check that in our app we're no longer, yeah, so we don't, look down here. Yeah, in our app API we're not using that. So that's good. So today we're going to go with, I guess, an issue that's a lot more mundane, and that's we're going to do a matte icon. And so I think like a red exclamation mark when this is true would make sense, and then nothing when it's false. And so that would be good. So one thing that's always been a bit annoying about Angular material is that when you're watching somebody, like if you're watching a tutorial or something, what works for them very, 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 very likely won't work for you, especially if you're just getting started. Because, like, if all the right, hey Rhett, if all the right things are, if all the right things are available, then you can just write the code down. You can write the markup down, and you just get it. But all the right things aren't available. So if they aren't available, then it won't work for you. And so if the person's already if the person you're watching on a tutorial has already set it up, if they've already done all the right imports, then in all likelihood, if you haven't done all the right imports, won't have that. So let's go look at our imports. And actually, I'm probably not going to do it this way now that I think about it. Wow, Rhett. I do not think she will be in my next video. So it does look like we bring in a lot of matte stuff, but I do not see the matte. Oh, I do see the matte icon. So it looks like we could probably use just straight out of the box the matte icon. But I did, if I remember correctly, we do actually have a little section in our, we have indicators. So maybe since we kind of already went down that path, it might make sense to create like a API uh, API change indicator might be a good name to do it. So what I'm going to do, what I typically do, I would say 99 times out of 100 is I feel a certain sense of, that's so weird. I feel a certain sense of comfort when I do it like this. And I guess it's just because I see how I did it before. So I'm going to close my other, I'm in my package, so I always close my other. And so LC indicator. So you see here, I did not put it in its indicators folder. So let's see if I can find them over. Let's see. I might have just moved them over afterwards. Indicators. Okay, so yeah, I've never done that before. So I'm just going to. So this is where we generated our component API indicator. That's probably this guy. Yeah, API indicator. This is where we did our log count indicator. So let's make another indicator. So basically, I like to run things out of here. Another big reason I like to run things out of here is just because then you can be sure that it's using the libraries for this project. I have literally dozens of different versions of Angular running on this machine. So to make sure that I didn't accidentally globally install one, and now when I run the CLI, if I try to run the CLI directly, that it might run the wrong one. I've definitely done that before. Maybe that's an old thing that doesn't happen anymore, but I like that. But I'm going to say API change. And we're going to say ng generate, and I guess we can use G. There's no reason to say generate. And we want to do a component, so we can say C, and then API and change indicator. And then we can come over here and we can say npm run and then API and change. And so now it's going to run this. And so, and I don't know why, but it's also a lot easier to remember these commands when you have them right there. But so we expect it to show up in the indicators. So let's go ahead and do that. And hope our new folder shows up here. And it should be right in between there and there, API change indicator. It doesn't usually take this long, but it usually takes longer than I expect it to take. There we go. So now, so that was not right. Yeah, so it's kind of nice thing about this is you can just right click and delete it. That whenever you do that with a component, probably one of my favorite things about it not being that's probably one of my favorite things about standalone is when you have standalone, it doesn't update a bunch of modules, so there's not a lot of unwinding to do if you mess that up. So it's indicators, and let's try that again. Now the good news for, okay, what did I do wrong? I misspelled indicators apparently. Or no, okay, so it needed to go inside of components. Yeah, put it outside of components. So let's delete that again. And I guess we need to, okay, now it's being weird. All right. So something you can do that's pretty cool is you could type in Explorer and hit a dot, and it'll actually open the Explorer window if you're in Windows, anyway. So if you're in Linux, you can type in, I believe it's Nautilus, and it will actually open the um, the viewer, and that's always nice. Um, like, you know, a lot of professional environments, you might have like a bunch of cloned directories with different things, and it can be kind of confusing of where you are. All right, so we want that to be in component instead of there. So let's see if we can delete from here. You'll need to provide why? Why would I need to do that? All right, I might need to just kill this whole thing. It is weird that I need administrative privileges. See, I don't even know if that would work. I think that might have been like kind of a um, false um, error. All right. Come on. Come on. You can do it. npm start. All right, so we want this to be inside of components. And the nice thing about like doing a lot of stuff like this is like it gives you some sort of take on like just like how sharp you are on a given day. Normally I can just do this without even thinking twice. Today it's a bit challenging for me. Don't know why. Um, I did sleep like 10 hours last night, so you know, might be related to that. Oh my gosh. So now I created a new components folder. Let's see if it'll let me delete this time. Like, how weird is that? Okay, and it's component. All right, here we go. Okay, component indicators, API change indicator. So the good news for this is that we'll be able to easily, I mean, we'll have to import everything. So, you know, like what I'm doing here should work for you even if you don't have everything imported, because this is going to be a standalone component. And let's just double, I think if it doesn't say it's standalone now. I believe in Angular 17 before, you had to say standalone equals true, and then I believe in Angular 18 or maybe in Angular 17, they made it where standalone was the default, so you have to say standalone false. No idea why they didn't say standalone false, which you could, like whenever you upgraded, they just removed it, so it was weird. Anyway, so we have our component and all that. So let's go ahead and get our component to show up in our tab. So basically we're going to need to import our new component. And this is where things can get a little weird too sometimes. A lot of times, most of the time when you do components, you use this selector in order to draw it out. And we will, but sometimes you can do it with just the class and the selector doesn't matter. So searching for the selector isn't always going to work for you to find it. But we do have to import that selector since this is standalone. So this is sort of almost the very, very close to the, it's just from a practical perspective, it's identical, but probably behind the scenes it's something different, but it's very similar to a module. So I want to use this component, so I need to import it into my, into this part of my application, into my component director imports. So then just kind of look at this, make sure that that makes sense. Then I like to go up here and kind of make sure that, I don't know, should I divide these up? I kind of have a mess up here. All right. So now I have this thing. So then, since I did that import, now I can get my selector name, which is this guy up here, app API change indicator. And then I can just say, I can come in here, and right here I can just go like this. And so it should give me whatever whatever was inside of there, which is probably like works or something like that. API change indicator works. Yep. So that's exactly what we're hoping to see. And so now we only want to see that if it's true. So I believe what we want to do is, and this is something that came, I believe, after Angular 18.2. I think it's like hashtag if, yeah, maybe it's percent. Can never remember what the very first thing in the Angular markup language thing is. I'm guessing we're doing it up here. Has API. Nope. I just cannot remember. Yeah, continuous definitely does some stuff like that. So, oh, at if, at if. We only want to show this if that is there. All right, so we don't want to show it if it's, we don't want to show anything if it's not there. And I don't think we need this anymore. Okay, so that works. And now, just for the fun of it, just to be sure, let's not set it to true, and just make sure that it is hidden. Now, do the same. We look at our inspector, because this is, you really, if there is some sort of weird, if that expression changed thing showed up, this is the point in time that you want to deal with it. It is just an absolute misery, creation of misery. That thing just makes life miserable for so many people, that error. And when you find it, what am I trying to say? Oh, when you run into it, well, the thing is like I've seen other errors that were kind of like that in Angular, and like I would just spend all kinds of time trying to figure out how to fix them and all that, and then like a new version of Angular will come out and they'll just suppress that error, and then it's no longer a problem again. So at some point, I'm guessing they're going to decide that's really more of a internal thing that they need at Google, that most of us, for the vast majority of people, have no use for that thing, and put it behind a flag where you can turn it on or off to see if you're having that issue. But in the meantime, we have to deal with that. So now we have our thing back, and we have that showing up if whenever it is. So basically, we want to do like a matte icon, and I don't know what a good, like I want a matte icon for a red exclamation mark. So ChatGPT, here we go. The markup for a matte dash icon that is a red exclamation exclamation. Ooh, error. Yeah, that's probably a good one. Oh, why? I don't want that. That's what I want. I don't know what we're going to get for our color, but we're going to find out. So when you do this and you paste this in here, you will likely get you may or may not get a error warning. If you get this warning, that means that you have not imported the right stuff. And I believe it's matte icon module. I like to try to do things like this out of memory if at all possible. So matte icon module. Yep, and then it brought, and that looks right to me. And so what we're hoping is when we hit save here, we come back over here. Yeah, so the error has gone away. So now we'll come in here. And I think that's great. The big question is, and this could be like, I feel like the spacing is a bit, I wonder what other choices there are. What other choices exist for color? I'm curious. So there's accent, which is the secondary. I feel like accent maybe is what I want. Warn. Let's try accent. And then come in here. Oh no, I don't think that's a good idea at all. All right, so we're gonna go with warn. Probably should have made this warn, but I think that's probably warn. I wonder what kind of, I'm gonna inspect this and see. Because I do like that color. I think that color is better. So the color is from API, so it's its own. So I'm just gonna stay with this. But I would like to have a little bit of spacing, and I feel like wouldn't want it on top of anything, so I think it makes sense to put it in there. So in my styles, I'm going to say matte dash icon and margin. I'm going to say 0 and 4px. So basically 0 on the top, 0 on the bottom, because it seems to be lining up nicely. That is not always the case. And then 4 pixels to the left. And yeah, I think that looks so much better. Now, I don't know. I don't think that what I just did here works on all versions of Angular. I think that I've worked with some versions of Angular where you can't change these base level things. Oh, I don't know. Let's look. So when you would inspect it, there are some. So Azure Blue is where that comes from. Yeah, so yeah, okay, so this class that's being created is actually being like this ng content dash ngc733 is kind of like isolating this call to only something in here. So that means if there was another component inside of this component, that I don't think this matte icon would flow through to that one. But if you wanted it to flow through to any of its children, then you would need to put it in your styles. Let's see, Control P styles. Okay. In this folder, which is up here. So, anyways, I think this is good for today. I think that even if you went in here or here, you would now know that something is something is different in here. So I probably should commit this code. Let me see. Just make sure everything makes sense. And then I'll commit and push this code just in case anybody else is using this software. Yeah, I think that may end up being a bit of a distraction. Um, I thought I deleted this. Oh no, this is our new service attribute. So this is what we change to true or false to decide whether this is that or that. It's just like a public attribute that we're listening. I think we have a very, very good grip of the size and scope of this application, and it is not, I don't believe there's any future consequences for doing it this way, because I don't foresee any really growth in this application. And then this is our error icon, our new error icon. Now, in the old days before ChatGPT and before I'd practiced that a lot, I think that getting this icon here would probably have taken me 2 days, like 16 hours of just banging my head against the wall. Now I've practiced it a lot, and then I have ChatGPT to find out. I mean, there was all kinds of bizarre things. Like you do searches, and you'd find out that in some that not all the icons are always available. It may or may not be available for you. Just now, it's just with practice, and for this specific scenario, it took just a minute or two, and that is kind of another one of those realities of software development, and that's kind of what makes that whole point system so bizarre, because like when they're talking in agile and they're making points and they're like, oh, for this person it's a one pointer, so it's always a one pointer, but like one person it might be like a 1 minute job and they fully understand what's going on and they have a full grip. Another person it might be a 2 hour job and they'll have no idea what they wrote and they just copy and paste a bunch of stuff. Some of that stuff works, some of the stuff doesn't work. And then another person it might be a 1 week job, but they'll understand every little intimate aspect of it, and so points just is way too, I can't think of a better way to do it, but it's way too simplistic to describe what we do. um, I think when you make points you might as well just be like on Seinfeld. If you ever watch that, they went through an episode where they would always say yada yada yada. So they'd be like, I went into the bank, yada yada yada, I have my $200. And then they let you fill in the blanks. But the yada 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 might be they robbed it, or it might be that they took money out of their account, or they pickpocketed something. Like the yada 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 is super important. I think that's what the points are. It's just like, yeah, there's just, the point does not match up very well. But anyway, so I think this is good. I think it looks good. Tomorrow or next Saturday, there was two things I wanted to add to this and to my config. One was process locally, and the other one was, I think it was like, interim results. And they're both Booleans. So basically what we're going to want is, and this is a shared component, we're going to want to add two more values to this form. One for with the two things I just talked about, which I already forgot what they are. Let's go back here again. Interim results and process locally. So that's for next week. I would imagine, who knows? It probably only take, yeah, there's just no telling. I'm thinking it'll take 1 day each. So hopefully next Sunday we'll be back. And then hopefully the following week after that we can go back to, I think we're done with this one, right? Yeah, about the site. We're done with this one, about the developer. This one I think we're done, yeah, because it just links straight to YouTube. And it's kind of weird that it popped up in the debugger. I think we noticed that before. And then this one, how to use. So we want to make a video of how this thing works. Oh, no, then the next thing we need to do is sort of update this text. And then make this an expected value. Make process locally an expected value. So then this guy should go away, and then we'll have that. And so if I ever come back, and then then I'll finish up the last couple of the video for this guy, and then some text for this thing. I don't think this one yet. And this will be like talk about all kinds of different things that why it may work differently for you than what you watched on a video, what you saw on the how it works video. Um, and there are so many reasons, especially now. There's more with you might get a version of of uh, the API for your specific browser that has it turned off, depending on where you're at and all that. There's just no telling why it might or might not work. And it'll be also to test um, this guy. So once we get this implemented where we can turn that on and off, the way we're going to be able to test it is disconnect from the internet and run it and see if it still works. I don't even know if it works now. It's always a good idea to capturing these videos whether it work now. Hello, are you listening? All right. Got 4 things back. And they're all variations on the spelling of hello. We'll go to continuous. Hello, are you listening? And I don't know, let's see. And I don't know if you noticed, but we kind of got all kinds of different like pop-ups. So like if you go like there, you can see what like the last version was. And these are, so by default under continuous, I have, and we'll lose all of our history there. I have this interim results turned on, and then by default on discrete, I have it turned off. And I feel like it when we first started, discrete didn't work, or one of them didn't work. I think continuous didn't work unless it was turned on, unless the interim results was turned on, and then discrete wouldn't work unless it was turned off. And I don't know if that's still the case, but that'll be good to sort of capture in the tool, because right now we really can't even test like video to even capture a video of how it works as of today. But anyways, happy coding, everybody. Bye.